All right, picture this. You've got a patient crashing right in front of you. Their airways swelling shut, blood pressure's tanking. I mean, it is screaming classic severe allergic reaction. But then you ask them, and they manage to say, I've never had this before. Whoa. So what do? That hesitation, that little moment of confusion, it can be absolutely deadly. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to break down a critical difference that every single first responder has got to know.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to build this whole explainer around a single question. And trust me, the answer to this one has some serious life or death implications out in the field.
So here it is. In contrast to an anaphylactic reaction, an anaphylactoid reaction, what's the deal? The answer here is probably not what you think, and it really blows up a common and pretty dangerous misconception. Let's break this thing down.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the one we all think we know, right? Anaphylaxis. This is your classic textbook allergic reaction. The bee sting, the peanut allergy. It plays by a very, very specific set of rules. So the key phrase to grab onto here is requires prior sensitization. Okay, think of it like this. The very first time your body meets something like, say, bee venom, it doesn't freak out. Not yet. Instead, your immune system just quietly gets to work, making these super specific little soldiers called IgE antibodies. And their whole job is to remember that one specific invader for next time. So what's happening is your body literally has to learn to be allergic. It's like it's forging a custom-made key. That's the IgE antibody that's designed to fit one and only one specific lock, the antigen. And here's the kicker. Without that first exposure, there's no key. No key, no reaction. It's that simple. That prior exposure is required.
All right, now let's bring in the villain of our story, the imposter, the anaphylactoid reaction. This is the one that looks the part, but it's a dangerous mimic that just throws all the rules we just talked about right out the window.
And here's the big twist, you guys. Anaphylactoid reactions. They set off the exact same life-threatening chain of symptoms, but, and this is huge, they completely skip that whole IgE antibody step. They don't need a custom-made key because the substance itself, it's like a master key.
Yeah, and get this is a real shocker for a lot of folks. It means someone can get their very first dose of something like a morphine derivative, or their first ever CT scan with IV contrast, and bam, full-blown, life-threatening reaction. There's no warning, no prior sensitization needed. That master key, it just works right out of the box.
So when you put them side by side like this, it's crystal clear. You've got anaphylaxis, that's the planned attack, right? The body's seen the enemy before, but then you have an anaphylactoid reaction. That's a total ambush. It happens with zero warning. So we're talking about totally different paths, different mechanisms, but they both lead to the exact same terrifying crisis. Okay, so we've spent all this time talking about the how, right? How the reaction gets started. But let's be real. In the middle of an emergency, when someone can't breathe, does the how actually matter? And this right here is the most important turning point of this whole explainer.
Because when you are on that scene and that clock is ticking down,
the microscopic why of it all, it just doesn't matter, not one bit. Why? Because what you're seeing, the physical presentation, is terrifyingly identical. And this is the danger. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's from a peanut or from aspirin. The patient in front of you is going through the exact same thing. The same airway closing up, the same blood pressure crashing. The body is in the exact same crisis mode.
So let's circle all the way back to the beginning. We have all the pieces of the puzzle now. It is time to solve this thing and get to the final, actionable takeaway.
And the answer is B. An anaphylactoid reaction can happen without any prior exposure to the agent. Because it doesn't need that custom IgE key we were talking about, it can strike on the very first encounter with something. And, this is critical, it can be every bit as severe as classic anaphylaxis. And this brings us to the single most important rule to come out of all of this. This is the one sentence to burn into your brain. If it looks like anaphylaxis, treat it like anaphylaxis. Even if the patient says, I've never had this before. Look, the patient's history is important, of course, but it should never, ever make you hesitate. If the signs and symptoms are screaming severe reaction, you treat it, and you treat it aggressively. The name doesn't matter, the treatment does. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? We've just pulled apart two conditions that start differently but demand the exact same immediate response. It really makes you wonder, what other medical lookalikes are out there? The ones where spotting that hidden difference could be the absolute key to saving a life? Something to think about.
Stay curious.